feasibility study. Our feasibility study was completed by a company called Ballard King, and we have Scott Caron here from Ballard King to review some of the key highlights and like an executive summary of what we found in terms of the research that was done on the viability of the community center in Millcreek Township. So he has a great presentation for us, and then I welcome everybody to take a tour of the room. We have a lot of different boards with a lot of information on our timeline, on why we think this purchase could make sense for us, how we might go about financing it, and how we can afford this, information on the environmental study that we did, information on the property condition assessment that we did, and some information on some of the plans that were a call to action for us to even be moving in this direction in the first place. So lots of information around the room. We welcome everybody after the presentation to take a look around and take those in. All of this information will be available online in the coming days. We're going to put them up hopefully by Wednesday afternoon. And then we're also going to be building a repository of everyone's comments and questions that hopefully you guys feel welcome to leave us. So we have paper copies on the tables if you want to write any comments or questions down. QR codes are also available if you want to submit it electronically, but we'd like to get as much feedback as we can from our residents and post it out so everyone can read and share and take part of the process with us. And essentially we're going to use that information to give to our Board of Supervisors who have a decision to make on this opportunity in front of us or not. So that comes down the road by the end of May is what we're looking at for that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Caron, and he's going to talk to us about our feasibility study and a plan on how we might be able to make this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. As Ashley said, my name is Scott Caron. I'm with Ballard King Associates. We are a recreation planning firm that's been around since 1992. We focus on 3 different things all across the country. One of them is Parks and Recreation System Master Plans, which you guys undertook about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, as part of the planning process for the community overall, to have an overall well community. We also do feasibility studies, which is what we're talking about tonight, as well as assess operations of not only departments, but various facilities, whether it's an athletic complex, aquatic center, or community center, or recreation center. So all of us in our firm have operational experience as Parks and Recreation providers. I was in the Parks and Recreation field for 27 years. So I have a lot of municipal experience in various places across the country. I was sharing with the ladies over here earlier. I've lived in 4 different states in various sizes of communities, operating facilities. So this has been my entire life. Past 3 years, 2+ years full-time, I've been on the consultant side of things. So taking my experience in the field and applying it to what we do across the country. So one of the biggest aspects and one of the reasons why our firm is brought into these is to provide additional information for communities as far as what the market is, but then also what the operational opportunities are for communities. And specifically, it provides some third-party analysis to be able to provide that data and that analytical side of things to be able to make decisions. And we know these are crucial decisions for a lot of different communities. They're exciting opportunities, but they need to be based on information and good content to be able to move forward in balancing the wants and needs of communities. So with that said, the first step that we took within the feasibility study was performing a market analysis. And so we have a number of slides here that will show and provide information about the data we collected. So when we do a market analysis, the first thing that we always consider is population size. We know and understand that a number of folks are needed to be able to have a successful operation. When we look at the Millcreek Township, we identified the township boundary as the primary service area. That's who a facility, community center facility, would be for primarily. But we know and understand that people from outside of that area would be interested in potentially using the facility. And actually, we'd be happy to share folks from outside of Millcreek Township that participate in current programs and activities provided by Millcreek. So But when we specifically look at Millcreek, it's a little over 50,000 people. When we work across the country and look at community centers, one of the first aspects we look at is total population. And a key indicator for us is that 50,000 population threshold. So nationally, when you look at number of facilities or number of population to community centers, it's about 35,000. So if you have a population of about 35,000, that's typically where you will find community centers. They're in much, much smaller communities, but that's kind of that basis. If we take a look at it, is would it be acceptable, or would it be, is there potential there to be able to participate? So that checks one of those boxes. And again, when we started to take a look, also knowing that that broader group and area is going to be able to utilize that, so kind of that 30-minute drive time. People don't mind driving that in general in this area. They come to Millcreek for various other amenities, specifically on the south and on the west side of things. The reason we did not go further into Erie is because there's a number of other providers and facilities like YMCA's and those types of things in that area. And folks just tend not to drive past one facility to get to another. So we didn't want to overestimate or state the potential impact this facility would have on facilities towards that direction. So the next item that we look at is median age. And so when we look at the community overall, it is an older demographic, an older population. So that starts to inform as to what the potential activities in the facility would start to take a look like. The largest demographic does spend more on recreation activities than the national average, about 13% more. So again, that's a good indicator when you start talking about indoor recreation facilities. There's not a lot of children within Millcreek Township. So again, when we start talking about what the activities and programs are, it doesn't mean we ignore that aspect of it, but the focus of the facility should be more on the adults and the senior side of things to be able to provide programming. Again, not ignoring those younger folks because we know we need them to be able to provide for, because they participate at a much higher rate than what a lot of other age groups do as far as program participation. But again, we need to be mindful of that moving forward and what their ability is to pay for services. So speaking of that, when we look at household income, the household income is similar to the state overall, and then the expenditures also are similar. They do spend about 5%, 6% lower than the state average, but again, that's pretty in line. Again, when you specifically look at the revenue, the income level of the community overall. When we start talking about the market potential for various aspects, various activities that could take place within a community center or within a parks and recreation system, we identified a number of different activities. And again, this is participation for adults 18 and above. And again, we have additional data that we look at for the 6 to 17-year-old age groups, but this is specifically the market for the adults. And so when that MPI, the Market Potential Index, exceeds 100, that means the participation rate is greater than the national average. So pickleball, walking for exercise, and yoga are at or above the national average as far as the market potential would indicate that those are strong facilities and amenities and programs that should be provided because people are truly seeking them. Just because one of those activities is below 100 doesn't mean that it's not needed or not interested, the community isn't interested in it. It could be that there's just not facilities to be able to participate in those. And so there just hasn't been a market for them because there's no facilities to be able to participate in those activities. We also looked at alternative providers, and I know that's hard to see. There's a lot of dots there. The black ones are rental facilities. The red are gymnastics, dance studios. The blue are fitness and sports-based facilities, and then finally the green are martial arts. The reason we identified all of those is because those are activities that could take place within a community center. But one of the things that we found is there are no public providers in any of the areas for those types of activities. Typically, the public providers are ones that are providing that introductory level to many participation activities. Indoor facilities, and so it's important to be able to have spaces to be able to do those types of things. So while there are a number of private fitness providers, more so, there are limited opportunities for rentals. We saw a need need for rental space within the community, but then also that youth programming, as well as adult and senior programming spaces within the community. So to summarize all of that information, basically the population would seem to be adequate enough to support an indoor recreation center. If you provide something, that the focus and activities should be provided in wellness. There is going to be a little bit of a sensitivity towards the fees that would be charged for a facility. But there is an increase in recreation spending, so we did find that. And then there is limited opportunity for folks with multifunction, multi-purpose, multi-generational opportunities in the realm of recreation and wellness provided for a community. So that's the market that we found. Once we identify what the market potential, or looking at the market overall, we then start to apply what particular spaces could be provided within a community center. And so what we did is take a look at a number of different components, and then the impact of what they would be on the expense side of things, as well as what they have the potential for revenue generation. So we know and understand those expense items, those are high dollar items as far as staffing is concerned. Depending on the market, they may or may not be successful in moving into that. Again, we just identify a number of different spaces and start talking about what the opportunities may or may not be here in Millcreek Township. So when we consider all of the market, we consider what the alternative providers are, we consider what the potential program elements could be. Where we settled is an approximate facility of about 40,000 square feet. One of the ways that we come about that nationally, when we do a level of service, it's typically 1 to 2 square feet per population. It's kind of a good starting point. So at a 50,000 population, that would mean that a 50,000 square foot facility may or may not be the potential for feasibility for a community. That's kind of a starting point. Then you start building in the potential components of what that facility could be. So in this instance, we identified the lounge, lobby, multi-purpose rooms, again, those rental spaces, but then also spaces to be able to provide programs, activities, and events, both on a small scale, but then also on a larger scale. Prep kitchen, if you're going to do any type of rental, you need to have some ability to provide catering services, not necessarily to be cooked on site, but to be able to be warmed or cooled to provide food. Gymnasium, again, you saw pickleball as a high indicator as far as the market is concerned. But then also we know that there's a lack of gymnasium space in the community as far as public accessibility. Yes, there's a number of schools, however, the access is pretty limited, and the ability of Millcreek to be able to access those for programs and activities. Track, again, we saw exercise walking as a high potential for use. So again, whether that's indoor walking in the winter is something that would be high on the list. Typically in most master plans, and I think in yours, walking and trails are usually the #1 item that are identified by a community as a want for their community. So again, the opportunity to do that when the weather isn't quite as conducive to doing that outdoors is a good space to be able to provide. Dance studio, or that small activity studio that you can do various wellness activities, fitness, but then also providing a wellness center that may have cardio equipment and so small weight equipment to be able to live a healthy lifestyle as far as an introduction to health and wellness and fitness. And then, of course, support spaces for that. And that's not just office spaces, but that's storage as well as mechanical spaces and custodial spaces to be able to maintain a facility. So we take all this information and we utilize the best practices from our work all across the country. And as I mentioned, we do about, we've 30 plus years done about 800 to 1,000 different studies of facilities. Not all of those have been built. Because for various reasons, whether that's capital costs or the operations, just did not indicate that they should move forward with being able to do that. So some of the assumptions, we would assume that Millcreek would be the operator of the facility. We've seen others other communities have nonprofit providers or others that may be interested in doing some of those types of things. We take a conservative approach. We look at it more as a realistic approach and kind of a baseline. We feel that there's a great opportunity to be able to go above and beyond some of the figures that we provide. However, our experience in the public side of things, we know when you're wrong on a budget item, that can have catastrophic results for an overall budget. So we want to be conservative when we put together our operating plans when we work with communities and be realistic with what the expectations could be. So it's based on the new revenues for a facility. We use the market penetration rate of 1.7%, which is not very strong. As you saw in the market potential index, many of those activities have a participation rate exceeding 10%. So when we look at a multi-purpose indoor recreation space, specifically that is more gym space as well as fitness, typical market penetration we utilize is around 10%. Many facilities exceed that to the tune of 15 to 20% market penetration. So again, in this instance, we want to be mindful and understand that this is not truly a fitness center. It's not a full gymnasium type thing, potentially. So we ratcheted down the penetration rate to be able to look at who could potentially use this from a membership standpoint, but then also from a programming standpoint. We always recommend that there's an annual allocation for future equipment replacement. We know that HVAC, boilers, chillers, those types of things are expensive components, so we always recommend a set aside for equipment to be able to be replaced at some point in the future. So for Millcreek, what we would recommend is a Monday through Friday operation as well as Saturday and Sunday hours, just because those are the hours listed does not mean that there wouldn't be rentals or programming or event opportunities beyond those. But these are the hours that the facility would be staffed with somebody at a control desk to be able to assist folks within the facility and guide them if they need assistance. So about 84 hours a week. There would be 3 additional staff people that would be added to the Parks and Recreation Department. One would be a facility manager that would be responsible for programming of the facility as well as scheduling. There would be a program coordinator, actually currently does all of the programs with herself as well as part-time staff to do those types of things. So a program coordinator could assist Millcreek Township overall in being able to provide events and activities. And it just takes a lot of coordination and time to be able to do those types of things. And then finally, we want to be mindful of the maintenance and custodial operations, and so we would recommend a full-time maintenance position that would be housed out of this. That again, all of these positions could assist with other operations in the Parks and Recreation world. If you're not familiar, it's pretty much all hands on deck doing everything all the time. That's the way a lot of municipal government operations are overall, but Parks and Recreation in particular. So all of these positions would be able to assist not only would be not only within the community center, but would help with outside of this facility. When we start talking about overall expenses, the personnel side is obviously always the most expensive. In this case, it's about 65% of the overall expenditures. We do include, that's both full-time as well as part-time, and we do include benefits within that personnel allocation. Commodities, that's just your supplies that are required to be able to do that both from a maintenance standpoint and equipment, but also recreation supplies as well. And then contractual, the biggest line item there is typically going to be your utility costs. As we all know, gas and electric are not going down in costs, and so it is a high figure as far as operating a facility. So overall, it gives an overall operating budget of just under $900,000. And so when we look at the operations, the opportunity for revenue generation, daily admissions would be an opportunity for folks to be able to come in and use the wellness center as well as if there's a gymnasium in that facility, and then also joining as a member on a monthly basis. And again, we go about this from the standpoint of we try to be pretty low key and pretty limited number of opportunities, because I know when you go somewhere and there's 15 different options for some things. Sometimes you just choose not to because you're confused about what those opportunities are. And so we have limited opportunities. We know a lot of communities where they will split it up. They'll do resident versus non-resident fees. They will do 3-month memberships. They'll do punch passes. They'll do a lot of different ways to be able to do that. And we're not saying that you can't do that here, but when we built the operation plan, this is how we based that operation. And then, of course, certainly there would be programs and rentals that would be in the facility. So we did notice that the program fees are currently under market price, and so we recommend a 10-15% increase in the fees of the recreation fees that are currently provided in spaces. Some of that's due to the facility, the lack of limited those facilities, whereas this new facility would provide greater opportunities. So all told, there's the potential for about $600,000, a little over $600,000 in revenue, and that would equate to about 140,000 folks being able to participate or utilize a facility. So which is substantially more than what currently participates in programs and activities. So when you look at it overall, there is the opportunity within the space that Millcreek is looking at to have about 10,000 square foot as lease space. And so there's an opportunity to be able to lease that space to somebody that would provide about we estimate about $150,000 in revenue from leasing that space out. So when you put all of that together, it's about a 90% cost recovery on the facility. When we do this across the country, most facilities fall in that 60 to 80% as far as cost recovery. So being closer to that 90%, we feel is very, very strong indication of what the potential is for a facility in Millcreek. That's not to say that some facilities don't exceed or have full cost recovery. However, for public recreation facilities and public parks and recreation, most of the time they do not have full cost recovery. They are a benefit to a community and providing access, health and wellness, and opportunities for both youth as well as seniors, the opportunity to recreate with healthy lives. So that is one of their missions to be able to do that. So I think that is the end of what I have. So I know it's a lot of data and information, and actually, as Ashley said, a lot of this will be posted on their website as well. But I think that's pretty much what I have for you this evening. So, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak to everybody and provide the information that we have. And thank you for being here as well, taking your time out to understand what the opportunities may or may not be here in Millcreek.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.